Everyone knows the Beast of Gévaudan. This monster made the kingdom of Louis XV tremble. But what if I told you that the Gevaudan was not an isolated case? Far from it. It was only the climax of a series of massacres that had been soaking France in blood for centuries. Our country has a heavy past, a bloody tradition of devouring beasts. Before 1764, there was the Beast of Gévaudan, which claimed over 100 lives. The Beast of Gévaudan, or even the Beast of Limousin. 18th century France was a territory where man was not always at the top of the food chain. In 1747, long before the first victims of the Beast of Gévaudan, an unnamed terror descended upon the Dauphiné in the parish of Primarette. A beast so strange that it drove the inhabitants into a total state of paranoia. Mixing werewolves, sadistic nobles, a complicit clergy, and the trafficking of human fat. Welcome to the forgotten archives of French horror. To understand this case, one must dive into the records of the time. One man documented everything. Father Favor, the priest of Primarette. This man was so haunted by what he saw that he transformed his death certificates into a macabre logbook. In the margins of the registers, he drew wolf heads with almost human features and bulging eyes. More disturbing still, he no longer used simple terms. He employed Latin words to designate the beast, as if he were describing a biblical plague. With a chilling clinical detachment, he records the fate of little Catherine, only 5 years old. She was playing by her doorstep while her parents were at church when the shadow struck. The parish register leaves no room for hope. It describes the unbearable state of what remained of the young girl after the creature's passing. For the priest, this was no longer just a tragedy, it was a carnage from which he would never recover. The fear was such that the priest himself finally snapped. Legend has it that he no longer crossed his own village without a loaded shotgun, even to go say mass. But what exactly are we talking about? Witnesses described a creature that seemed straight out of a nightmare. They spoke of a Laupservia lynx, but endowed with Herculean strength. A detail from the testimonies actually shatters the theory of a simple, old, or sick wolf. The beast was capable of leaping over 2-meter walls with a prey in its mouth without slowing down. If these accounts are accurate, we are facing a predator at the peak of its physical power, capable of feats impossible for an ordinary animal. To this are added to even more aberrant details that definitively rule out the possibility of an ordinary wolf. Several survivors claimed that the beast did not attack from the ground. It climbed to the tops of trees and waited, hidden on the high branches, before plunging vertically onto its victims. Yet, biologically, a wolf is completely incapable of climbing trees. Even stranger, period reports mention that the creature knew how to use its paws to operate the wooden latches of cottages to break in at night. To the population, this monster no longer had anything in common with a wild animal. It possessed the techniques of a feline and the intelligence of a man. Stranger still, some witnesses recount that before every attack, a massive bird of ill omen, a crow or a black raptor with unusual cries, flew over the village as if to designate the next prey. For the inhabitants, the bird and the beast were linked. Either the creature could change shape, or the bird served as a scout for the local masters to spot children left unsupervised. Officially, there were 9 direct victims for this parish alone. This figure may seem low, but on the scale of a small village, it was a slaughter. The psychological impact was devastating. Primarette became a dead village. No laughter of children was heard anymore. The streets were deserted, and every door was barricaded by mid-afternoon. In the face of this crisis, the royal authority finally reacted by promising colossal cash rewards for anyone who killed the monster. For destitute peasants in 1750, this reward represented several years of wages. It was the beginning of a completely uncontrollable gold rush. Hundreds of inexperienced villagers armed themselves with old muskets and rushed into the woods. But paranoia and the lure of profit turned the hunting parties into deadly chaos. Terrified, drunk, the hunters fired at the slightest shadow in the fog. The archives of the Dauphiné then recorded terrible hunting accidents. Peasants killed each other in the thickets, believing they were aiming at the beast. To get the money, they poisoned the forests and slaughtered farm guard dogs, all without any result. This is where the story shifts into social psychosis. The population, locked in their homes, began to whisper a terrifying theory. At the time, the region was rich in glassworks owned by nobles. It must be noted that in the 18th century, these master glassmakers were true outcasts, often coming from a fallen or ruined nobility. They lived reclusive lives deep in the woods and were perceived by the peasants as alchemists or even sorcerers. Public rumor caught fire. They were accused of being wolf leaders, men who had made an occult pact to train the beast and terrorize the countryside. The rumor spread. The beasts were not animals, but agents serving the master glassmakers to harvest human fat. In their delirium, the peasants lumped everyone together, the nobility who would kill to lubricate their furnaces, and the clergy who would turn a blind eye in exchange for donations to rebuild the churches. For the villagers, every new stone of the church was paid for with the blood of their children. The madness was such that on May 15, 1749, the church had to organize an immense procession of penance. Abbé Favre led the entire village into the heart of the forest to erect a massive structure there. The Cross of Good Encounter. The priest pronounced a solemn and ritual exorcism to drive out the demonic forces guiding the monster. Around 1752, without any official explanation, the massacres stopped abruptly. No royal hunt, no hero. The beast vanished. But a disturbing fact confirmed the inhabitants' suspicions. At the exact moment the attacks ceased, one of the region's main glassworks closed its doors. For the people, the conclusion was clear. The supplier no longer needed raw material, and the predator had been recalled. The nobles and their accomplices in robes had finished their sinister task. Father Favre never recovered. It is said that he ended his days prostrated, speaking only in riddles. On his deathbed, he supposedly whispered that the beast had never left, that it had just changed shape. Did an overpowered predator simply die in the shadows of the forests? Or was the industrial sacrifice finally over? Today, historians call this the Primarette complex, a case where the biological reality of a killer animal met the darkest conspiracy theories of the 18th century.